I'm going to be explaining every, had to wait for music, every balance change in this update. It was 3.5 pages of balance. A lot of balance and a lot of division, obviously, right? There are people who are saying this is the best balance update ever, and people are saying this is the worst balance update ever. That the game is ruined, the game is saved, right? Very divisive. Let me preface by saying, right, that I think going forward, Deepwoken's in a spot right now where no matter what changes are applied, you're going to have people who are going to be saying this is the worst balance or best balance update possible, because there is a lot of very broken things right now, and a lot of people love to say that Deepwoken needs to be fixed. There's so many broken things in this game. And a lot of people, when they play the game, they complain about somebody else's build, right? But when that nerf ends up coming towards their build, a lot of people end up being defensive. They're like, wait, what? No. Flame wasn't that busted now. Or what? Why did Falcomus get nerfed again? They already nerfed it 5 months ago. Do you see what I mean? It's a lot of bias, and it's kind of hard to navigate through the bias when you ask somebody, what do you think should be nerfed in Deepwoken, right? And so just keep that in mind, that obviously it's understandable that there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with some of the changes here, right? But I'm going to go through and explain the thought process behind each and every single one of the stuff here today. Here we have the content, right? Got some new talents, got a new rapier, got a new mantra, right? And attribute stuff, Scorched Blood, refresh. What else do we have here? Iron Spear remodel. Okay, right. And we got new NPC doing something. I forgot what this was. No, I can't remember what it was now. For starters, we have the rate for crowns being buffed. I'm gonna keep it a bug, bro. Yo, why wasn't this buffed earlier, bro? I was like, bro, I was taking a peek at that. I was like, this should definitely be higher. It was gonna be higher, but 5 knowledge is what's gonna be so for now. 1,000 notes. I really think that, come on, 1,000 notes, 1,000 for a crown, bro. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. This is solid though. Honestly, like, well, you have 10 crowns, 50 knowledge, whatever. I think it should be more. At least I'll see if we can argue for 10 knowledge. 10 knowledge, 2k notes. Come on now. Right, now we got some buffs to war mode. We got basically more relics that can appear in the chest, right? And then we have 2 more items added. Nice, because people quit war mode, and people were pretty upset because war mode initially, when it first dropped, right, was actually a lot of people were fucking with, like, okay, loot feels pretty good, right? Then the changes happened afterward. People were not fucking with war mode. War mode essentially died, right? Item eventual added back to Ferryman chest. So this was a change that, yes, no. That's right, yes. Let me explain. Now, I know I went on a giant crusade in the past about eventual, right? Big threat, shouldn't be as easy. And I still believe that, right? I still do believe that people shouldn't just be cooped up in Ferryman all day, especially when there's very little risk. But it was removed entirely, and I was like, okay, removed entirely is crazy work, right? If you want to grind the safe option, I think if it's going to be there, it should exist, but it should take a lot longer. The problem was the rates were too great. But to eliminate it completely, now that was a bit too much, right? So it has been returned. And the bonus chest, I always was like wondering if you could get like fucking relics out them. You couldn't. So now armor zero show up in them too. So Ferryman farmers, you know that, right? I know Argamog's the one who suggests that, but yes, that's right. I wanted to see this, so hope they're happy with that. Because I was like, okay, well, you can allow it. We can allow it. It's small enough. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be It's not gonna be as broken as it was before, obviously, because before it was so good. I guarantee you, if it was in the game, people would never do enmity. People would never. It would just be too risky to do enmity, bro. Deadass too risky to do enmity. I would. Why would you do it? You could just constantly get good relics from Ferryman. But I'm glad. I think it's at a very, very balanced rate now. Then we have Movesack Assassination with aerial attacks. I'll show you a clip of what this was, right? So people did vote for like assassinations to be gutted here, and I'll explain this later down the line of what was changed exactly with it. But there was let me see if I can find, was it this change right here? Okay, music has to stop for a second. So take a look at this right here, and this is the assassination move stack change, right? Take a look. So how it would work is that you would do an aerial attack as you're doing an assassination, and so what was occurring was there wasn't, I don't think there was a proper check for if you were doing an aerial attack to stop the assassination or make it like cancel the aerial. So that was implemented. And the reason why the spine cutter was proccing here was because if you noticed, right, he did a roll cancel as he was jumping, and it allowed him to do basically a true combo of aerial attack plus spine cutter plus assassinations. Hopefully all that should be fixed, and it should only be assassinations. Obviously, though, there's probably going to be a few more that pop up here and there. Obviously, they're going to be fixed, right? Anyway, continuing with the music, right? Bit too loud. Right, continuing through, we have the war mode point penalty being applied, right? Being applied whenever you actually have the starting requirement. So what happened was that this was when they initially did the change for war mode. Again, this was another part of things that potentially killed war mode, was that they made it toward the scaling of how much you lose points started at 1 player. Mind you, you need 4 players to start the war mode. Why? So now it starts from 4 players. Obviously, if you try flooding up with 5, 6, 7, 8, it's going to be that's when the penalty is going to start kicking in. But it never made sense, because what would happen is that you would have like 1 player who would go down and still grips. And I'm not saying that shouldn't happen, but it shouldn't be where the 1 player playing alone has such a massive advantage compared to the starting 4 or even starting 3, right? If maybe get a random to join you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, we'll hopefully war mode, like I said, gets a bit more popularity with these changes, but we'll have to see. Honestly, war mode 2.0 might just need to pull up. I think this is a mount change. Yeah, just something nice to make mounts a little bit more usable. And getting parried now, cancel sliding. This was big for mages as well. Reduce intelligence on strong mobs. Yeah, like a lot of mobs a lot of mobs were basically like just auto parrying a bunch of shit, right? Return the Dark Ages. This is probably like the first divisive one, I'd say, right? Return the Dark Ages reduction. In my opinion, I think it was a part of, there's 2 things a part of this. This was a part of no attunement having a very big edge in terms of being able to get a lot of damage still, right? Because they focused on M1s. While the mantras, if you look at like any no attunement medium build, most of the time, right? There's like an exception, but most of the time the damage wasn't coming from the mantras, and they were hitting the cap. They're hitting the healing cap. And so this is actually like almost like a 2-parter in a way, where you'd have no attunement build that did a lot of damage through M1s, and especially things like that's why obfuscation was used a lot. You had a lot of damage on your M1s, then you would force block, right? You would force block by mantra fainting into an M1, right? So a lot of people, I don't see a lot of people do this, especially on the common side, but it's a thing that people do all the time whenever you start getting into the higher tiers of chime, right? And so they stacked up a lot of M1 damage. They would abuse hitting block, right? And you might see that with Stone, so don't be surprised if Stone also gets changed maybe next week. But they would abuse like block mechanics, right? And on top of that, when you hit them with a mantra, that 20%, right, would just it's so good. That 20% less damage, keep in mind that stacks with a lot of other things in this game, right? If you have high elemental, what you could do, bro, there's people who ran elemental kits even, right? Or even things like Sacred Field Elemental, right? You can go like much higher into the physical, less than the elemental, shit like that, for example. And so it's just a low change for now, 20 to 15%, because I initially was gonna be like maybe 10%, but I think 15%, probably a lot more balanced, and doesn't completely kill the talent. It's still an extremely good talent for no attunement. Don't get that twisted. True Ether Bullets proc. So this is like a True Ether Bullet buff. I don't think anyone's complaining, bro. I never saw True Ether. It's like you had to like hit it like 4 times, or like it was just like who was using that, bro? I mean, people would obviously pick it up, but hopefully we get a little bit more gun usage. I think it has been lacking quite a bit. Wheel and woe buffs, for some reason the crit was just the crit was just like, there was like no range on it. There was literally less range than the M1. Come on now, what is that? So hopefully Wheel and woe just gets a little bit, it's like, you would use it like the slash in my video. You would use like the slash, and I was like, yeah, it just doesn't hit. So now it should feel a little bit more proper to use. Crazy slots, base damage for Great Sword and Great Axe reduced. Now I saw some people saying this is a Silent Heart nerf. This was not intended to be a Silent Heart nerf. I do think that honestly, Silent Heart should probably get its enchants on its moves back, because I think it needs to be like a one or the other thing, where it's like, is it oak damage or is it M1 damage? And I do think that it deserves it back, right? I'm just speaking on Silent Heart real quickly. I think that it actually did get the thing is, like, the bug fixes that it got were also a part of its nerfs, right? And so having the nerfs to its M1 capabilities or synergies with enchants on top of the oath damage, on top of the bug fix, was like 3 major blows to Sanhart. So I think honestly it can probably get its new enchants back. Honestly, that's what I'm feeling on that. We're just saying, hey, this is an M1 not oath damage, right? Which I think will hopefully, you know what I'm saying, allow for, I don't know, a bit more usage. I think a lot of people were complaining that Sanhart felt like total trash, especially like light weapon Sanhart. But no, this is mostly just because, like, bro, every time in a gang, bro, you always see a crazy slot. It's a great sword. They whack you. They do a fucking like 15% of your HP. I have one of these builds. I literally have one of these builds, and I can show you. If y'all want to see the damage, I will show you why this change got made. And then people were saying that crazy slots got nerfed entirely. No, it's actually rebalanced. The dagger and gun got buffed pretty well. Scaling for the dagger from 7 to 9, because chat, on everything I love, I don't think I've ever, in my 3.5 years of playing Deep, have ever seen somebody go crazy slots dagger in any fight. Never, not once. It's always been the heavy, right? Hopefully this allows for the dagger to, like, it's a crazy slots weapon. It should maybe be used a little bit, not just like the one time you see like fucking John over here, bro. It's like the only time you'd see it, let me make an exception. Only time you would see it is like fucking the troll 100 heavy, 100 medium, 100 light builds. That's the only time you'd see that shit, bro. I swear to God. Besides that, honestly, the stats were like, why would you really use it? There wasn't really much reason to use it when there's much better options. So hopefully this balances out crazy slots a little bit more, right? And maybe we get some more variety from crazy slots players, right? The wind gun changes. So a lot of people are like, dude, why did wind gun damage get nerfed? So the thing is, right, is that the wind gun, all their posture damage are all the same. They were all the same before, right? So each gun had 3 posture, right? And so what would happen is that how it worked is that there was no changes. Multiplying Spark added 3 more bullets, so it was 4 in total. And then Blast Spark was 7 more bullets. And so what happened is you had a Mantra that shot 8 bullets, right? And up close, all those hit. That did 3 posture each, 24 posture damage. And it is the fastest variant as well. It did the most posture and had the least wind up. What the fuck is that? What? That's why, bro, it was so good for hitting through, like, just block breaking motherfuckers. That's why it was so insane, right? Because, like I said, 3 times 8, 24 posture, and it was the fastest. So, changed it up a bit where the slowest variant, which is the multiplying spark with no blast spark, that is now the one that does the most posture, right? Because slowest, it makes sense, right? The slowest should be the one that deals the most posture. Then you have second up, which is the wind gun, which base damage of this, the base posture was like awful, just awful, like 1 hit of 3. So hopefully that goes up. It's a little bit faster though, and then obviously the blast bar got toned down to basically like 24 posture, like 6, right? So that's a pretty big nerf for that specific one, but a buff for the other variants. Hopefully they get some more usage, right? We got lightning assault, flame assault, shot assault, less range in water. This is tricky, right? Because the problem is there's a lot of things in water that are very, very powerful. And so the thought process was more like, okay, I think the more common ways that don't have insane dedication to escaping in water should be nerfed. And then, what's it called? The ones that have like super high dedication, they can get nerfs, but keep in mind, right? If someone is dedicating, like, in my opinion, half of their build to getting more water mobility, right? It just doesn't make sense that, what's it called? People like with these, like, for example, you could have Trident Spear and Lightning Assault alone. Those 2 alone, and you could escape almost any player in a gank. That is not a lot of commitment. You can easily put a Trident Spear motif on any spear possible, right? There was no commitment to using that. And so the idea here is like, it was very low commitment for extreme water mobility, and you would just be able to outspeed anybody else. Just outspeed them very, very quickly. And it wasn't even like you're using a bell. It's not like you're using fucking portals, right? It's not like you're using smoke screen to escape. These are bells designated for escaping and not having much combat ability. No, this is stuff that people could also use to attack players. What would happen, I was on my shadow build, right? The one that's like the damage multiplier. What I would do, and you could see it in the clip, you could see it in the video, because it had such a massive range in water, you could be far away and just bloodless off of like 3 niggas, because it's so far that they wouldn't be able to see you coming in. That's, you can go look at my video. That's how crazy the range was. And like I said, that's why these changer mages, and the Trident Spear crit as well. But honestly, I can see maybe retaining like some of its speed a little bit. But no, Trident Spear, super low cooldown, made it very, very easy. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Petrus is thrown up here too. Toe Grab, wind up increase. Below 4.2 is just basically unreactable for most players. I'm gonna keep it a buck. 0.035, man, that is just extremely quick. You need to have like 300 hertz 20 ping, bro, to like consistently not have to. The comp players were complaining about the windup of this, right? So imagine the average Joe, right? Obfuscation. So obfuscation, right? Let me explain this one. Obfuscation, in my opinion, was not insanely godly busted. Keep this in mind. I don't think it was insanely godly busted. I think it was very, very strong and consistent, right? And so the problem is that I feel like obfuscation took away a lot of enchant variety, and a lot of people saw this as well. People were like, dude, obfuscation, you would see obfuscuscation. There was literally like a build for that you would see all the time in Enchant. Obfuscation, no to katana, right? Like everybody saw that shit, and that's how common it was. I think it might have been the most used enchant of all time. You had obfuscation usage in verse 1 because of swing speed, and then you have the chip damage that has been going on for many months, right? And so the idea here is that the speed that you get from landing it is still very, very powerful for being able to consistently land back hits, right? And going behind block and stuff like that, right? On top of that, obfuscation is also just very hard to see in some situations where it's like, for example, you have like the map, the fragments map in Chime, for example, right? Or any areas where it's like very, very, sometimes very dark or very bright, right? It would like almost be, it'd be very difficult to see the weapon as well. So it's like, it had like 3 positive effects. It had the insane ship, right? Especially on heavy. Chat, obfuscation heavy fucking Hive Lord's Hubris. I know people have been fought that one before. 50% ship, right? Absolutely insane. And I didn't think obfuscation needed all that, and I still think it'll be a solid enchant, right? I still think it'll be actually picked because it's speed. If it doesn't, we can see from there, right? But for the most part, I also think most of the change was not only because it was very, very powerful in 3 great places, but on top of that, just to allow for more enchant variety. And you will see this later on when we discuss the enchant buffs. Right, then we got the stone enchant one. We will see about this one. This one probably I'd say like is the most shaky. This might get removed, right? The critical, what was happening, like I said, you would have instances of people being able to hit like damn near guard breaks on motherfuckers, doing a ton of posture on crits, right? We'll see. Honestly, stone might have just needed a nerf in general, but I think this was a lot more slept on because the common player would be like, stone? I rarely see stone, right? But obviously you ask like people who actually do play a lot more often in the PvP setting and be like, oh yeah, dude, like stone fucking Gale, for example, right? You would see people who had like stone katana and they were running like wind gun blast spark. And like they were like hit the fucking block once and then land like a feint into the wind gun blast spark, insta guard broken on any build that doesn't have like 40 posture. Like what the hell is so we'll see about what happens with stone. Like I said, don't be surprised if this ends up maybe getting reverted. Maybe this gets added back and then they just nerf, like we just see a nerf to the M1 posture in general. We'll see, right? It's I mean, like I said, it's up in the air. Now we got elastic buff. The pull time has been increased by 30%. This is just enough to where if you land an M1 with elastic, land like a move that knocks back, like Ash Slam, it will bring them back in. It'll like bungee jump them back in. I thought that was a really cool interaction. And I think it's the same, a shame that, in my opinion, elastic has gotten basically power crept by a bunch of other stuff that came out, right? And a bunch of a change that came out. And it was always low-key just generally on the bottom of usage, in my opinion, in terms you back then in verse 1. Maybe you'd see like on Flame. Remember that? Like Flame builds would use elastic. Besides that, these days, you rarely see it. So hopefully we see some love for elastic. If it ends up being too powerful, again, it can be slightly toned down. But I think the hope is that it won't be too busted with knockback combos. But like I said, we'll keep a watch on that. Electrolyte this time was just awful. In my opinion, this was just an awful one. And maybe you could argue you see blue. You just never saw the build with it, right? It was just a terrible dual team talent. No, and it removed your temp health. Honestly, this one I'm low-key thinking just to do like what happened with like fucking Scorch Blood. Just damn near give it a new effect. Honestly, like because who wants to get rid of their temp health? Yeah, no, I don't know about that one. NOK healing scaling. This one is pretty crazy. Let me explain why. So what was going on, right? What was going on is that you saw players who would invest very low points, even sometimes 0 points. They would get like Iron Spear, Trident Motif, NOK, right? With a 0 weapon. So they get NOK healing, insane water mobility, and the Trident Spear motif is really good actually for landing NLK fucking the sanity hits. This was all with 0 weapon, by the way. Now it's more like, hey, you actually have to build into the weapon, which I think makes a lot more sense. I think there needs to be a lot more things in this game where if you want a strong effect, right, put a lot more investment into it, right? A lot of people have always complained about, dude, builds feel the same way, and especially with talents, right? People are like, dude, build, like, everybody has the exact same thing. So it's like, okay, how about we see about the more common stuff that is very, very powerful and have a lot more investment put into that, right? Now we have, what's it called? Oh, I forgot to cover this. Bloodless. This is probably, I can definitely see, chat, I'm gonna tell you how it is now. Anytime Bloodless has gotten nerfed, there has always been a general complaint, right? The average person is always gonna be like, dude, what? Why? Right? And this happened like 3 or 4 times. Anytime, what's it called? Anytime Bloodless is just fucking just like that, right? You always see people, what's it called, complain about Bloodless. This happened the first time when the cap was higher, and then they added the cap, and then they reduced the cap. And in my opinion, this will be one of those situations where people will complain about it, and then eventually it will become commonplace, right? And at the moment, what was happening is that you would have, again, so remember how I mentioned before, right? It was in tandem with no attunement nerfs, right? This is in tandem with that, where you would have builds that were, you would have builds that were basically, you would have, like, let's just say, like, yeah, like a fucking glass cannon lightning build, right? And you would deal 60 or 70 damage even, because that's possible, right? I think it's a bit much, but you... Yeah, so this was when I actually figured out, like, a bunch of the things in the game were broken due to some of the rewrites that was happening for this update. Let me just add a little bit note onto what I was saying. I was basically saying, like, what was happening was you would have people who would have a lot more mantra damage, who were dealing like 60, 70, 40 mantra damage, right? Healing the same as somebody who only dealt 25 damage, and it just didn't make much sense to me. So keep in mind that, generally speaking, if you are a glass cannon build or just a build that focuses more on mantra damage, you will be hitting the cap or getting like more healing than people who decide to go things like no attunement, right? And they would, you know, flourish on being able to have a lot of M1 damage and still getting the same amount of healing because there was a healing cap, right, of only 15, right? And their mantras would deal less damage. So basically the healing was kind of even. Hopefully now it's a lot more balanced out and you actually have to invest a lot more into mantra damage if you want to get more results from Bloodless. That was the hope there. Right, so yeah, Sacred Field was just one of these things that was just a part of like just insane damage reduction builds. On top of that, right, you were seeing like in situations where you would have like a support build, for example, that was running like Sacred Field, like Link Strider, for example, right? And it was like a 1v4, literally impossible to win against. Because, so hopefully we'll see, maybe the idea is like, it's slower to catch up to you, right? So you can't just, because it caught up to you super quickly. You could just move around and it instantly be on you, right? The idea is that it can still move, but you have to be a lot more careful with the placement of Sacred Field. I don't think Sacred Field should be completely gutted like some people are saying, right? I think it just need to be toned down a little bit to where it's not just completely insane to where like you could have like 2 people running Sacred Field and they could rotate and shit like that made it very, very difficult to deal with. These fixes are just really annoying, and they were affecting combat, right? People would like miss their Rising Flame and still land the fucking down. Bro, it was so annoying. And then Hero Blade of Flame for some reason didn't get it either when it used to. All right, punishment. I gave what's it called? Idea is right. I noticed that punishment barely. You couldn't punish punishment, and so punishment is very, very powerful. Very powerful. Reflects posture and damage back, right? Extremely quick windup. It's basically unreactable, and so it's such a strong counter. The idea is, I think it should still be like high risk, but also high reward, right? And so now it has pretty much similar end lag to prediction. Hopefully, the idea is that it will definitely not be so free, and you can punish people who try and use it like they try and just think they can get away with it even if they whiff, right? Ice Forge. So I remember I was reading like chat earlier, right, when I was just saying general discussions, and I saw people like, dude, why is Ice Forge getting nerfed? Chat, what would happen is, right, so if you put a Blast Spark on Ice Forge, what would happen is that every Ice Forge, it's similar to the Wind Gun. Every Forge Shuriken did 3 posture damage. So what would happen is, right, Ice Forge, whenever it hits you, all of them basically like slap on you at once, and the Blast Spark adds multiple more hits. So it would do 10 hits total, right, if you used Ice Forge. That's 30 posture damage with Blast Spark. Bro, what the fuck, bro? So now, it should be more around 12 posture for a ranged move, mind you. Whereas before, you would see people like throwing that out. Maybe if they had anything that increased posture, right? Or, you know, obviously Ardor. Bro, that shit would do so much posture damage. But, you know what I'm saying? Ice Forge also did like it did like no damage, right? It did like no damage. So base damage increase, posture increase. Hopefully it balances out to be less of like a ranged guard break and more like, you know, how it should be, like just a pretty solid, hopefully better damaging Ice Forge or Ice Ranged Mantra. Ice Blade. This was just reported. Ice Blade. It's like that little like slash you do as you're like doing like a slide jump, right? Slide jump slash. I'll take a look at the nation second. Thank you. But you do like a jump slash, and the damage was like awful, but the windup was like literally like as fast as punishment. So windup increased, but you know what I'm saying? The glitch ability should do as much as like damn near an Ice Lance. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully it makes Ice Blade a little more used, as well as a damage increase, because like you just never saw Ice Blade like that. Old Ice Beam. All right, now this is experimental, chat, but I wanted to see what would happen because it contrasts to the other big damage nerfs. So remember, things here they don't have to be like permanent or take like years to come back to. Hopefully balancing is a lot more active, and so we can try stuff for a bit, chat. That's the idea here. That even things on this list, we can try stuff for a bit. If it ends up being too problematic, it can be reverted and a new attempt can be made. Hopefully that can be a lot more consistent of a theme in balancing, because tell me if I'm wrong, chat. There will be things that are nerfs and stay nerfed for a year. Literally like a year. And it's like, bro, what the fuck is that, bro? So I said, okay, let's try this out, because Ice Beam has been in the depths. Idea here is that you can increase its size to the fucking classic. I mean from the burst 1 Ice Beam. But the cooldown is fat as fuck. If you want like the full power final Kamehameha, right? You'll have a minute long cooldown. You know what I mean, right? That's the idea. So hopefully we've never seen balancing like that before, right? It's always just been like, even today, there's a lot of like bigger size, more damage. This is an experiment, right? Where it's like, if you have a giant mantra, perhaps the solution could be, it's a powerful big mantra, but it just has a very long cooldown. It's a trial. We're giving a test run, right? Like I said, so technically this is a buff because the base damage has been increased, right? Just so that people are like, well, you can't use it without increasing the size, right? Base damage has been increased a fair bit. And hopefully the idea is that you can go like a giant Ice Beam to the burst 1 days, but obviously instead of having like a 15 or 12 second cooldown, 30, 40 seconds, so because you have a much easier hit mantra. It's just an idea on what could be done here. After we get to the bottom, I'll take a look at the dono. Second, yeah, this is in the balance, because this is basically a buff to Curse Winner, because bro, the second hit is just not landing. But obviously the damage got nerfed a little bit because second hit got added back in, and then Loki did a shit ton of damage, so I see why it was nerfed. Needle Barrage, now this looks crazy. People are like, what? Needle Barrage, 60%? What the fuck? Needle Barrage at level 5. At level 5, what happened is that as you had more levels, chat, you had more levels, more needles were being spawned in as you used them, right? The base damage splits between the needles. So you would get more damage, but because each of it was split between the needle, if you parried, it would be better to land 3 level 1 needle barrages than 3 level 5 ones. The 3 level 1 one would maybe do close to, it was close. It's like, what is that? Because they got split up. And so the idea is here that the base damage, hopefully at level 5, every needle does like 3.5 damage. That's what it was in the past, like 6 damage, right? So now if you land like all 6, it does 36 damage. Chat, why? That's fine. 36. That's if you land all of them. That's if you land all of them. And that's with by the way, that's with the level 5. It literally did super low damage. Bro. Also, Shadowgun, people are like, 40%? Bro, base Shadowgun also did very low damage. Made sure that the Blast Spark was unaffected, obviously, because people do use the Blast Spark one. But the base one did like 20-ish or 20. It's like, what is this low-ass damage? We'll see, like, you know what I'm saying, if it needs to have the size. Chat, here, actually, I already did. It had the size and range damage modification thing, right? Size and range. So it had low base damage, nerfs if you made it bigger, and if you were farther away, it did less damage. So it made it do literally like basically no damage, right? So hopefully the base damage helps out a little bit. We'll see. Now we got a wind gem buff and a wayward buff. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Yes, people might be like, well, wind gem didn't really need it, but these were underused. Wayward, 21 seconds for rework Wayward? Who was using Wayward like that? Come on now. So hopefully, like I said, Bloodless nerf, Insignia nerf, Wayward Wind, we get a little bit, we can see some more Wind Wayward usage. Like I said, I mean, Bloodless and Insignia are still going to be doing its effect, just at a lesser degree. It's a tone down, right? It's a tone down. It's still going to be faster Mantra windups, which is insanely valuable. Sustain, always valuable. So I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't, those two changes doesn't change up the deep gem dynamic too much. Maybe we just need a new deep gem. Shit, maybe we can get some ideas and fucking popular suggestions. You know what I'm saying, right? We'll see. Which, fun fact, right? The changes, these are dual gun exclusive, right? This one specifically, that came from, I think it was like a dual gun document, and this was one of the talents on there. Threw that bitch in there, bro. You know what I'm saying, right? But we'll discuss those in a bit. All right, now let's go on to the rest of this. Twin Cleave nerf. It's probably the strongest medium Mantra, no lie. Slice and Dice, apparently I'm hearing it's fucking crazy. But no, Twin Cleave, like I said, just general nerf. So it might need a damage from that first hit because it is like 40-40. But for now, yeah, nerf on Twin Cleave. Sing, also, this is like similar to the Ice Beam change where the bigger the Sing is, right? This is also, like I said, experimental where bigger the size, the longer the cooldown is. What happened is, what was going on is like, you had people who would use Sing, right? And it would be like island sized. And so you could have like 2 or 3 people spamming Sing and you would constantly be stunned like that, right? And so the base cooldown got buffed up, you know what I'm saying? It's shorter, right? Base cooldown is shorter by 20%. But if you make it like island size, it's gonna have like a much longer cooldown. Hopefully it encourages people to use like the base Sing a little more, maybe in between, right? Chat, the idea here is that we're trying to see a little bit more, because what happens in Deepwoken right now is that you either go base or you go max. That's it. You rarely see in-betweens, and if you do see in-betweens, it's usually like, oh, I put 1 glass stone or 2 glass stones on my master. You don't really need the max. But at the moment, Deepwoken, there's a lot of things where you push towards the max because it's always going to be the best option. And Ether is, like I said, usually the people who can afford those like fucking bigger mantra modifiers, the Ether cost is not really an issue. I can tell you this on my build, chat. I made the fucking giant flame build. I would know, right? And so, like I said, just another idea for a big mantra nerf. Well, hopefully, because like that, chat, the ideal way could just be remove it from the game, right? Remove big mantras from the game entirely. You can no longer increase the size of X thing. But I think that would kind of suck, right? It's like, okay, it's gone forever, right? I think the idea, an idea that can make hopefully more sides, because with any nerf, chat, people are going to be unhappy most of the time. That's how it is, right? But hopefully that is that it makes the least amount of people unhappy while staying reasonable, right? Staying reasonable. And so we're going to try out solutions, right? What's it called? We have, size modification nerfs for Fire Eruption as well, just because it was a demon, literally a demon mantra in Overworld. Again, it could be reverted, and then it goes to like something like Sing or the Ice Beam one. We'll see how it plays out. Also for the following, Flame Repulsion, right? Rising Frost, Flame Assault, Rising Flame, Air Force, and Fire Palm all also have size modification damage. Shit's applied to it. What's it called? We have also just a decrease into the size of Fan the Flames Fire Eruption, right? We have Voltaic. We have some Voltaic Conduct. This is a dual ultimate talent, Lightning Iron Sing. 20 to 30% chip damage. You stop. The truth is, you stop seeing these sort of builds, right? You stop seeing these sort of builds after fucking the what's it called? Like the Lightning Iron Sing dual mantra, right? Dual 2-minute mantra. It got nerfed. You never saw the build again. Hopefully we'll see what's it called? Hopefully we'll see what ends up happening with this. Frenzy Dance, this is the well, there's a new Rapier, but this wasn't even planned. But bro, the Rapier town, this was awful. 80%? You're gonna get guard broken, or you're gonna you don't want to be at 80% most of the time. So a little bit more leeway. Hopefully it comes in clutch. 70%, 50% more forgiving. Pressure Detonation buff. This is the Shadow Gale one where you guard break with a Shadow Mantra. It causes like a little explosion, right? Or was it the Gale one? No, it's the Shadow Mantra. It suffocates them and it also does damage. So hopefully you see maybe more Shadow Gale builds a little bit, right? Rifle Spear Crit now is a speed buff during. Okay, what happened with that? The idea that so this is what was happening, right? Back then, people used to run and use the Rifle Spear Crit. Unfortunately, due to some changes, right? that was unintended, right? You're not supposed to be able to like run, use a crit, and keep running, right? Obviously, that would cause a lot of issues with probably current day shits. So the idea is that if you're running and you use the rifle spear crit, the speed buff you get during it maintains the running speed as previously seen before, or you can just use it while standing, and it makes the crit actually a lot better, hopefully, right? And for all my 5 rifle spear enthusiasts out there, we can maybe see something done here. What did Frenzy do? This made your rapier do more damage and applied, I think, bleed, or it might have been chip. But it did more posture damage. It basically buffed up your rapier by a good amount when you're above that posture, right? The problem is it rarely happens, so like, you know what I mean, right? But yeah, so hopefully rifle spear enjoyers, there you go. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people ask for the running to come back, and I don't think it can, but hopefully this is, I don't know. This might be too much. This might actually been too much of a buff for rifle spear, but it's rifle spear, man. Let it eat. Flame sentinel damage. Oh, no. It wasn't just nerfs. Flame sentinel damage, they can put gutted. I think, honestly, if I had to say what is the biggest gut here, it was definitely flame sentinel. The damage went from like 50, 45 it hit to like 10. As it should. As it fucking should. Fuck that. No, fuck that, man. Bro, I use it, and that shit is just, it was so fucking strong, bro. So strong, it did good posture, it proc eruption, it like took people out of, people could combo you, and if you took like a moment to breathe and it hit you, it was such bullshit. It was so BS, bro. PvE, the damage should stay. We can take a look at that. PvE, the damage should stay because I know my PvE bros out there, they use Flame Sentinel as extra, like, what's it called, extra DPS against things like Chaser, so PvE damage will come back. Damage will come back for PvE. Trust me on that. Just remind me for that, for the PvE shit that it comes back. Make sure I stay on that. But yeah, no, chat, the funny thing is, it's supposed to be a PvE mantra. It was intended to be it was never supposed to follow you. It was literally like what people are using it for Chaser. That was its purpose, literally. And then it became like a god. Anyway, floor lava damage reduced by 50%. Yo, look, what happened, chat? Floor lava did like, it was based on your eruption damage, so you would have like, even the base eruption, I'm not even talking about an empowered eruption. The base eruption did like 5 damage per tick, like 5.2 damage per tick. Mind you, you can true stun into floor lava. It's not like fire where like there are certain instances where like, for example, you know, like back then, chat, think about like this. Anytime there was like any sort of bug where you would like judgment them and they were on fire, right? There was always patches to make it to where you disabled the damage during the fire thing, right? But what's happening with floor's lava is that it's not even like it's unintended. It's just that people are like guard breaking with Fireblade, using Flame Grab or Flame Scourge to like stun them in place, or other shits to stun them in place, and they eat a shit ton of damage. Look at the what's it called? You can go look at the, hold on, I'll show you. There's like a sheep and sheepskin video on it, right? Where he's like using like it was like was it dagger? I don't know if it was. Might have been fist. I think it was dagger. So chat, take a look at this, right? Peep. Look at that DOT, chat. Look at that damage over time. Oh, bro, that damage over time is nasty. Chat, it's 2% per tick. 2%. Chat, if you walk up, imagine, and this guy, no, you know, look at this nigga. Look at this nigga. You know he has the kit on. Look, all black with him, bit. You know he has the kit on. 2% a tick, and this is to a top tier player with a good ass kit. You know that too. 2% a tick. Chat, you walk over it for like 2 seconds, 4% gone. What is that? 2% a tick. And then people have the fucking nerve to ask, what did floor's lava do? What did that do? 2% a tick. That's a lot. It did 5%. 5%. I think that might have been true damage. I think that might. Looking at the clip here, that might have been 5 true damage. 5 true damage a tick. No wonder it's taking. I ain't gonna talk about it, bro. That's insane. That's actually insanity that floor lava actually got away with that for so long. What the fuck, bro? You could argue this might need to be 75% true damage. Oh Lord have mercy, bro. I can't believe it. I can't believe that they actually got away with it for so long. It's not for clip farming. I wish it was. I wish it was, bro. I wish it was. No, that's insanity, bro. That's insanity. That's insanity that's doing that much to him. No, that's crazy. There's no way. So, like I said, I think Floor's Lava will still be extremely solid, just not as fucking insane for combos that confirm it. And just in general, it's always been very solid for, like, you can, like, you don't hold S because you can just, like, you can hold S into and, like, stay around the Floor's Lava, play very passive around it. I hate shit like that, and I did that. It's strong. I did that shit. I'm talking, bro, chat. I'm showing the shit I did. That actually could stand it, and people couldn't push you because the damage just fucked you, bro. Insanity. So hopefully there should be a little bit more, like, leeway towards that. Parasol Planner, bro, this. Chat. This is unfortunate. You know why? Because I think, chat, no matter what I ask, no matter what, this will always re-roll your fucking. I didn't even know that shit. That it, no matter, there's no system to make it not re-roll your fucking Parasol Planner. Nah, no one, bro. Chat, I always thought about it. Nah, if that was known, chat. But let me explain though. Let me explain the nerf in general, right? So people are like, why did Parasol Planner get nerfed? I'll explain this, right? I'll explain this. And there is actually a very solid reason. It's actually very obvious to people who play, but it's very solid. All right. The number one thing is that Parasol Planner was the best helmet stats-wise and the best helmet talent-wise. The talent was insane. Reduced bleed damage and damage return from like fire. All right. Very insane for Parasol, right? Or very insane talent for an equipment. But then on top of that, it also had just the best stats. And it didn't make sense, chat. It didn't make sense. I don't think it should be gutted. And in my opinion, this is not a gut. This is not a gut. This is actually a pretty fair nerf because the talent is just that strong. It is just that strong. Bleed reduction, fire reduction, shit like that, bro. Right? Bleed, you consistently run into bleed in the game. Right? The talent was just insane. And so the idea is that hopefully there's a little bit more leeway into what choice there is for helmets. And I'm a believer, chat, and I think this should hopefully happen soon, is that equipment should be like talent based, right? Right now, Deepwoken, I think, is in probably, I think this is one of the bigger issues with Deep. You could argue there's like a good amount, but right now, chat, all of these, damn near all these, you have no reason to wear any of them. You have legit literally nothing, even if you're on a specialized build. Most of these you will never fucking wear. None. That's for a lot of equipment, but I'm focused. I'm trying to show you for the Parasol, right? A lot of these, chat, you literally have no reason. You literally have no reason. Why would you ever wear Black Hood? Why would you ever wear Black Steel, right? The Blood Feather Cowl, maybe Blood Forge for drip. These are talents people can get normally. In my opinion, the perfect reward of Deepwoken would be all of these having a unique talent. And so, yeah, hopefully that gives a lot more insight into this change, because I think a lot of people, obviously, yes, it was like getting shit, like, bro, especially, that's unfortunate though. If I knew beforehand, this probably didn't need to be done. I didn't, bro, the reroll, there's nothing. Unfortunate, I'm not gonna lie, unfortunate, bro. It's a matter of taste. You can't make people do what they don't like. I think that's true, but imagine going to an ice cream shop and they only have 3 flavors: vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. I think you'd get pretty tired of the shop. It'd be nice to get pistachio, strawberry, banana, new options, so that people who've gone to the store every time can try out and try something else. That Deepwoken right now is chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and maybe occasionally we get a lime. You know what I mean, right? Let's expand the shits. You know what I mean? Onslaught being feightable. Yeah, for some reason, I think Onslaught was just unfeightable. It's just very slow. I don't know why it was unfeightable, right? And hopefully, you know what I'm saying, right? I think it was the worst heavy mantra. Hopefully it gives it a little bit more use, because it was a guard break on the shit, so maybe we could see some use with it. This was odd, bro. I think it was like a random buff to Light's Final Toll, right? Light's Final Toll with the Legion Kata crit was 0.3 windup. What the fuck? Now it's the same as Legion Kata. I don't know why it was so quick. That it shouldn't be that quick. Being able to arrow glide move stack. So what happens, right, is what people were doing, they were in the depths, right, on like a bird build. They would arrow glide, use like a bloodrun mantra, and then fucking gum fling themselves up into the air with like Scarlet Cannon and sometimes other mantras. So the idea is that, but when you're arrow gliding, You just can't use a mantra, bro. And I think that makes sense. Like you're in an action. You're arrow gliding. You have to focus on arrow gliding. Why the fuck would you be able to fucking fling yourself up and the arrow glide and then use the mantra, right? I don't know. Hopefully that helps stopping like people using bugs like fling themselves in the depths and shit. Boat Crusher nerf. Boat Crusher had insane stats, bro. Very crazy stats. So chip basically damn near got removed. However, right, I think the chip was there because of the drill, so the chip stays on the drill, right? But like you're using a blunt weapon, that bitch has. It reminds me of like fucking when what's it called? It's like when the fucking Course of Agonies had like insane chip, bro, right? And so it's like heavy weapons doing that much shit, bro. When they like uppercut your block or something like that, bro, it's going chunk. It's low-key going chunk more than you think. And so that's the idea with the Bow Crusher. I just think that the stats were just basically insane, and hopefully it's not. I don't think it's gonna be gutted. I think it's still gonna be very, very strong because it does do a lot of damage, and there's still good effects. You apply if you use Surge, every M1 applies Surge, right? You got like the crit applying status effects. I think there's still a lot to go with Boat Crusher. I just didn't think you need that many stats. -2 cooldown increase with the size of the mantra. Similar to the what's it called? Similar to Ice Beam stuff. Problem is a lot like people were starting to get creative and not creative, but kind of, bro. I've used this too, right? But people were starting to like got like multiple blind suits. There's been clips. This is why Sightless Beam needs to be touched. But there were people who were like in ganks with like 4 or 5 Sightless Beams beaming niggas, and if any of them got touched, they could all mind tooth each other. By what chat? Chat, listen. Mind tooth heals for 60 HP. If you have 5 people mind tooth each other, and it goes to the anti for some reason. If you have 5 people mind tooth each other, that's 300 health on a 1-minute cooldown. Imagine you got like all of them to 2 bars. They just go back to full. Fuck you. Yeah, it might have. A lot of people sometimes realize it's like, sometimes like you look at a change like, why is this happening? But sometimes when things are stacked together, right, with a squad who knows what they're doing, it becomes extremely dangerous. And unfortunately, average Joe is not encountering that often. Sometimes it's rare, but it doesn't mean it's not good. Just because something is rare, usually, sometimes it's like, okay, yes, it's unused because it's bad, right? People like to use like Fracking, for example, right? And also, you could argue Fracking was like solid. Even then, you don't really see Fracking now. But like, I think the number one example of something that was like really busted, especially way back then, but underused was Curse Seeger, and it was like on a 8-second cooldown. Anyway, let's continue. Blood Edge windup is the same speed as Ice Lance. Yeah, Blood Edge. A lot of people were asking like, where are the blood nerfs for this? Blood nerfs, there's probably a good few things. I think Blood Fowler is a demon weapon right now. I think there's only like a few blood mantras that could definitely get touched up. But what's it called? Blood Edge, for sure. I mean, it's basically like an Ice Lance. I think this is pretty bad. It's like 10% more, 5% more. Blade of Saint speed increase. I think it was just like it would be like. I guess that was made faster. Unbright Witherblade was supposed to get 25% more. What's it called? 25% more. In total, it was supposed to get 25% more for Dark and Bastion, right? Usually, if you are Dark and Bastion, it increases the Wither by 12%. They made it. They said that we added it, and it never really got added. So 25% there. Frostier Blade crit can be canceled after the first hit. Maybe that makes it a little more techy. And I got it to Pelbriar. Now, why? It's a great axe, right? The problem is Pelbriar stats are also very overtuned, bro. It does good ass heavy damage, right? But has no end lag, 10 range. 10 range. Bro, 10 range is fucking barbacious insanity. Insanity, bro. Reduced Frostier Blade crit end lag. Yeah, I think this is like a bunch of end lag fixes, right? We got something else here at the bottom. We got Graceful Steps. So for some reason, Graceful Steps, Dancing Steps has like a cooldown on it, but Graceful Steps just didn't. And so what happened, people were running Graceful Steps. They go in the water, they're out of ether. Doing, 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 doing. They would just like boost themselves and get like a god speed boost in water and on land. I don't know why it removed the cooldown on it. And so, yeah, I think there's something missing here, though. There's something missing here, chat. Oh, my goodness. No. Yo, Adhesive got a buff too, chat. Oh, man. Adhesive got a buff too. I'll tell you what it is. They'll probably put it here later. Adhesive, the new change for Adhesive is that the farther away somebody is on proc, the less damage they do. All right. So it's a damage reduction based on, because like Adhesive pulls you towards them, and it's like that shit is terrible. That's a downside. Bro, bringing I go towards you, that's a downside. And so now it's like if it does proc, right? If it does proc and does like the pull, it does. If they're farther away, it does less damage. Anti-range, right? Be up close. The idea of Adhesive is you want to stay close to me, right? And it's almost like you're, see how it's like, it's interesting, right? Because it brings them in, but it's like, yeah. And so, yeah, Adhesive buff, yep. And so, yeah, that's hopefully that's the entire, that was a long time, wow. That was the entire balancing shit's explained. Just keep in mind, guys, again, that none of these changes have to be like permanent. You know what I'm saying? Like balance changes can be temporary, right? And a lot of things here were almost like kind of tested upon, like the ice beam revert, for example, right? And just keep in mind as well that I think that it's a good thing to have like a rotating meta almost, right? I think for a while, you know, we've been seeing like kind of like the same enchant, like for example in Overlord or Chime, for example. I think that's a bad thing, right? And I think it's nice to switch things up and have new things like other like Elastic or Heroes and become like, you know, maybe like a top 10 enchant. I think that'd be kind of cool to see, right? And I think honestly that nerfs are just gonna hurt a lot when there's nothing to do. At the end of the day, people want new bosses, we need new PvE, and even then new PvP game with just new things to do with our builds. And hopefully, you know what I'm saying, people end up coming back to game and enjoying it again, right? That's what it's all about. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll be catching you guys later. Peace.